Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right in today, and I am so incredibly excited to be your guide. We are diving into a genuinely fascinating and maybe even a little bit unsettling exploration of how traditional schooling might literally be smothering our natural drive to learn. But don't worry, we're also going to talk about exactly how we can bring it back. If you're someone who is passionate about really focused, effective learning, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down this whole pedagogical puzzle using academic research, developmental psychology, and some really brilliant educational theory. So let's get into it. When did you stop asking why? Seriously, take a second and just think about that. It's such a universal human experience, right? As kids, our curiosity is just completely endless. We have this relentless itch to figure out the world around us. But then, as we grow up and, make our way through the formal education system, that constant questioning just kind of fades. And the thing is, this isn't just some nostalgic feeling we all share. It is a highly documented phenomenon, and it's the entire foundation of what we're unpacking today. There's this quote from educator Lillian Weber that just hits the nail on the head. She said, "Too many kids start out as exclamation points and question marks, but leave school as plain periods." It's incredibly poignant, isn't it? Because it goes right to the emotional heart of this massive curiosity crisis we're facing. Our natural wild enthusiasm is so often just flattened down into quiet compliance. Let's look at the actual data behind how this happens. Section 1. The curiosity crisis. To see how this actually plays out in the real world, listen to this anecdote from developmental psychologist Susan Engel. She was observing suburban elementary schools, trying to measure curiosity. Well, a kid excitedly points out, "A bird flew right into my house." And another kid immediately asks, "Why would it do that?" And the teacher's response, "I can't answer questions right now. Now it's time for learning." Wow, right? It's a shocking example, but a super common one, of a teacher actively shutting down a student's spontaneous wonder just to stick to a rigid, pre-planned lesson. The message to the kid is loud and clear. Your curiosity is a distraction. Section 2. The banking model flaw. So why does the system operate like this? To understand why standard education tends to extinguish curiosity, we really have to look at the foundational 1968 work of Brazilian educator Paulo Freire. As highlighted in a fantastic analysis from the International Journal of Educational Review, Law and Social Sciences, Freire's revolutionary text, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, totally dismantled the traditional education system. He figured out exactly how the system forces students into a state of passive compliance instead of active, energized inquiry. Freire called this traditional setup the banking model. Basically, imagine a student as a completely empty piggy bank. The teacher's only job is to just deposit information into them. It's entirely teacher-centered, and it fosters nothing but compliance. Kind of exactly like that teacher ignoring the bird question earlier, right? But contrast that with Freire's alternative, the problem-posing model. In this setup, students are actually co-creators of knowledge. It's totally dialogue-centered, and it actively fosters critical thinking. It treats students like whole, curious human beings, not just hard drives meant to store facts. Section 3. The Power of Dialogue. The absolute ultimate goal of this kind of dialogue is something Freire called conscientization. It basically translates to critical consciousness. It's the process of developing a really deep awareness of the socio-political and economic forces that shape your life. So, by engaging in mutual back-and-forth dialogue, students aren't just memorizing dates for a test. They are critically engaging with their own realities. They learn to see the systems operating around them, and they are empowered to question them. It literally transforms education from a tool of obedience into a tool of personal liberation. Section 4. Mechanics of the Socratic Method. Okay, so how do we actually do this in a classroom? We borrow from the ancient Greeks. The Socratic method is fundamentally aligned with everything Freire was talking about. It's active, it's dialogue-heavy, and it absolutely demands critical consciousness. And it operates in 5 distinct steps. First up, step 1, an initial, totally open-ended question about a massive topic, like justice or truth. Then, step 2 is hypothesis generation. The student takes a stab at an answer, and hey, flaws are totally fine here. Step 3 is the elenchus, which is the absolute heart of the method, and we'll break that down in a second. Step 4 is accept or reject. The student has to either accept their newly revised hypothesis or reject the teacher's counter-arguments. It takes a ton of deep thinking. And finally, step 5 is action. You actually adjust your worldview based on the new truth you just discovered. Let's zoom in on step 3 for a second, the elenchus. It's a cyclical process of cross-examination, offering counterexamples and refutation.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that people often completely misunderstand this. They think it's just a way for a condescending teacher to embarrass a student. Actually, scratch that. It's not about embarrassment at all. In its true, pure form, it is highly collaborative. The teacher is just pointing out circumstances where the student's hypothesis might fall apart, which actively helps the student discover their own logical blind spots and clear away their own prejudices.
And going through the elenchus leads directly to aporia. This is the ultimate goal of all that questioning. Aporia is basically a state of Socratic perplexity. It's that moment when a student suddenly realizes, oh wait, my initial assumption was totally flawed. When that happens, those walls of bias and, frankly, smug superiority just crumble. And why does this matter so much? Because that exact moment of sudden confusion magically reawakens a student's dormant curiosity. Once that stubbornness yields to real doubt, the student genuinely wants to figure it out. They want to construct a better answer. Bam! They are an exclamation point again.
Section 5. Proof in practice. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but does it work? Oh, for sure. It has massive adoption, particularly in legal education. An astounding 97% of first-year law professors use the Socratic Method. That is huge. And while some people argue they just do it out of tradition, its real purpose in law school is to forge the ability to reason. It forces future lawyers to internalize a questioning mindset. They have to actively hunt for circumstances where their own arguments could be totally wrong. It is literally the ultimate antidote to confirmation bias.
But hey, this isn't just for sleep-deprived law students. Younger kids benefit enormously from this too, using things called Socratic circles, or sometimes you'll hear them called fishbowl discussions. The setup is simple but brilliant. An inner circle of students discusses a text, while the outer circle just observes, takes notes, and tracks the flow of the conversation. The teacher, they step way back. They're just a guide, not the sage on the stage. This collaborative environment helps students co-construct knowledge, gets over that fear of speaking up, and builds some truly incredible critical reading skills.
And if you're a numbers person, the hard data absolutely backs this up. A recent university pilot study analyzing the Socratic method found a very significant positive correlation between how many Socratic-style courses a student took and their ability to successfully crush a syllogistic or logic-based reasoning task. The takeaway here is crystal clear. Exposure to this kind of instruction directly, measurably boosts a student's capacity to think logically and structurally. It works. So, we've looked at the data, we understand the mechanics, and we know the immense value of problem-posing dialogue. The question I want to leave you all with today is this: are we willing to oppose the traditions that smother our curiosity, or will we just remain plain periods? I really challenge you to rethink the standard educational practices in your own life, your own learning, and your own work. Fight for the dialogue, embrace the confusion of aporia, and whatever you do, keep those exclamation points alive. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it ignited your curious mind. Keep asking why.